an ancient palace, and a busy square. This place has been the heart of many kingdoms in the history of Nepal. This is the story of Durbar Square. Storm clouds brood over a busy street, filled with tourists and merchants and people going about their day. This is Durbar Square. For centuries, kings were crowned in the square and ruled in the nearby palace. Durbar is the Nepali word for royal palace. Although referred to as a square, the area is actually made up of 3 squares and several temples. The history of the square dates back to the rule of the Licchavis dynasty in the 5th century AD. They ruled parts of northern India and the Kathmandu Valley from 464 to 879. There aren't many historical records that have survived this era. Most of what we know about the Licchavis come from inscriptions into the buildings around the most ancient parts of Kathmandu. What we can summarize is that they first came to the valley around 250 AD and would establish their kingdom about 200 years later. The first ruler of this new kingdom would be Manadeva I. Later kings in the dynasty would open trade with nearby countries and expand Kathmandu. The palace we know today wouldn't be built until many centuries later, in the 1400s. The Malla dynasty would be established in the early 13th century. It would last until the 1760s. During this time, Nepal saw an explosion of art, architecture, and culture. King Jayaditha Malla would pass away in 1482. Following this, there was a succession dispute amongst his 3 sons. The kingdom would be divided into 3. One would expect that a war would break out following this, but instead the sons competed for the favor of their deities. They would hold architectural competitions, build temples, and try to outdo each other's holiness. This is where the palace we have today came from. In 1769, a new king would take charge and form the Shah dynasty. After this, the royals would no longer occupy the palace. It would still be used for the king's coronation, however. Conservation work for the square and its temples and palaces has been ongoing for many years. In 2015, a devastating earthquake hit Nepal. It damaged the square and the surrounding buildings. Since then, much of the area has recovered and is now a must-see tourist destination. Durbar Square and the Royal Palace have a rich history dating back over 1,000 years. It's an important part of Nepal's history and the culture of Kathmandu, and it shall never be forgotten.
Captain George Vancouver alights on the coast with a powdered wig and a quill in his hand on HMS Discovery, charting the Salish Sea. Cartographer to the English realm, a steady mercantile hand on the helm. Union Jack's on western horizons, the undertow of history, drowning in the Salish Sea.